Here to get you ready for game two. Liberty Aces. Locked on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A very pleasant good Tuesday to you. I am Howard Megdal, welcoming you to Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Incredible, you guys. Over 200,000 of you showing out in September alone, the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Of course, the great Natalie Heverin took you through game one with Terry Horstman talking about Minnesota Lynx, Connecticut Sun. I am here to talk to you today. New York Liberty, Las Vegas Aces ahead of a game two slate that is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait. Again, it's not just me, it's everyone across the board over at the Next, where we have over 100 reported pieces every month at thenexthoops.com. Make sure you're subscribing to our Locked On YouTube page. You can get all of us. We are blanketing the playoffs. Of course, we'll have multiple staffers everywhere throughout the semis, right on through the finals, like we do 365 days a year, except this year 366. So again, $9 a month, $72 a year, Locked on Women's Basketball, and thenexthoops.com, place to get it all. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for free. Go ahead and do that wherever you get your podcast. So segment one, we're going to talk about how New York looked so good in game one, an 87-77 win, and how sustainable, frankly, that is going into tonight's game two and beyond. Segment two, we're going to talk about A'ja Wilson's greatness and how that's not enough. And that is no reflection on A'ja. No one player can do it by herself. But we've got to talk about the extent to which A'ja cannot do it alone. And the Las Vegas Aces, in order to beat the Liberty, are going to need more, specifically from Chelsea Gray. And we're going to use history to explain why that is. In segment three, we're going to talk X factors. We love to talk X factors here. There's a lot. And I don't mean, no offense, but I don't mean you, Phoenix Mercury fans. I mean X factors on these specific rosters of the teams in the Las Vegas New York series. But let us start with segment one, talking about Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart. Holy cow. I just want to lay it out, what they did at the start, and then we're going to get into the why it matters, okay? Breanna Stewart, somewhat familiar to those of you who follow women's basketball. She has had, occasional success here and there. And yet she had the most efficient game that I remember having in the playoffs with New York. She is 34 points, 12 of 19 from the field. So again, 34 points on 19 shots, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Point Stewie, very much a thing in Sandy Brandella's offense. A block, a couple of steals, just such good decision making. She wasn't rushed. She wasn't too slow to get to things. She just found the rhythm right away and dictated things from the start. And you'll hear from Becky Hammon about that in segment two. I had to talk about it following game one. Sabrina Ionescu, biggest thing, and where we start, I want you to hear what they have to say, but Sabrina is healthy, and she spent all offseason working on that quicker first step to get downhill. It has changed the way the Aces are able to cover. So listen to what Sabrina had to say about this. The great Jackie Powell talked to Stewie about her game one. Back with you. We'll talk a little more about it. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Congratulations on the win. Sabrina, this one's for you. How much different is it? Two things. One, being healthy, and two, being able to take advantage of the first step work you have done to be able to get downhill this year. And how much has those two things changed the matchup, not just today, but all season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helped all season. Just being able to get into the paint, whether it's finishing, driving, looking to kick, whether it's dump off to the bigs or just looking to find my shooters. But obviously, I think anytime you're able to get into the paint, it collapses the defense. And so I know that's something that I've tried to do all season long, but especially in this series, I think to be able to see that tonight, my driving ability to just get paint touches and get some easy ones in, and kind of just, be able to rely on my shot, not as much as I probably have in the past. I think it's just helped me all around as a player and help my team.
Congrats on the win, everyone. Stewie, for you, I'm curious if you could take me through the conversation you maybe had with Sandy and the coaching staff during the Aces challenge timeout that happened a little over 2 minutes left that then led to 2 straight buckets for you, which then put the team up by 10 with a minute left.
Oh, that was that.
Oh,
yeah,
not
that was it.
Okay.
There were some others.
A few encounters. No, I think, what Sandy said was, continue to put the ball in mine and Sab's hand, especially down the stretch. And for us to kind of make plays, I think that, I know AC's really pressuring me and physical and into me almost all the time. And I tried to get her on a cut where I could get a little bit better position. And Sab found me on a shot. And the other one was shirt, a different action and same type of result.
So that's where we're at with what Breanna Stewart did in game 1, what Sabrina did in game 1. And here's the thing. I don't necessarily know that there's an adjustment Las Vegas can make to change the trajectory of what they are both doing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. You can't really utilize Asia Wilson as the primary defender for a few reasons, not least of which you need Asia as fresh as possible to score. And in fact, there's more pressure on her to do that than before because of what you are getting or not getting out of Chelsea Gray, potentially. We'll get to that in segment 2. You can't really utilize Alicia Clark on somebody else. And that opens up everything from like Leonie Fibich with the opportunity to score when she gets the opportunity to the fact that you can't double John Paul Jones, which is its own problem, not just from a scoring perspective, but from the fact that she's just a monster on the boards as well. She had 12 rebounds herself. The Aces as a team had 22. So there aren't a lot of moves for Becky Hammon to make. And Becky Hammon's a great coach who's done really excellent work with the Aces. I mean, the resume speaks for itself. 2 seasons, 2 WNBA titles, but there are limited ways you can adjust there. And then the other part of it is how it relates to Sab. And when you've got somebody who is able to get to the hoop the way Sabrina did, it gets real challenging real fast to being able to keep her from taking those 25-footers that she takes with ease. And when she's shooting them in rhythm, she's knocking them down. Sabrina's also not forcing it. Again, 21 points came on 15 shots. She had 5 assists. I mean, she did everything you could ask. A couple of steals and a block, too. She was a strong defensive presence. It is much harder, and we talked about this, and we'll talk more in segment 2. Obviously, the Aces are a different team with Chelsea Gray not at the same physical level that she was last year. And she's given it her all, but you can only give what you can give. But man, do we know that things would have gone the same way last year if Stewie were in a different headspace? And Jackie Powell wrote a great piece about it. You should read over at thenexthoops.com. And do we think that they would be in the same result last year if Sabrina's healthy? I don't know. But this is a different New York Liberty team. And a better one. And Sandy Brundell would be the first to tell you that. So would Sabrina and Stewie. They are confident, and I get why. So segment 2, we're going to talk about the Aces, who are no slouch team, who cannot be dismissed, to put it mildly. Going into a game 2, they could very easily win. Back with more in segment 2. I'm Howard Megdal, and you're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. And now you should know, and this is thank goodness for this, right? We're down to just the semifinals. There's a bunch of off days in between. That is good for the health of the players, but for the health of the fans, you must be sad we're not getting WNBA action every single day. And so there's this league called the NFL, National Football League, play a different game. There's very little dribbling involved. There are field goals. With the Giants, there's even, occasional victories, very, very occasional victories. And so you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you place a $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You go to FanDuel, it's not just WNBA anymore. They also have NFL odds as well. So again, $5 bet and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel.com. Yeah, NFL will really come in handy. We get down to the WNBA finals, and it's every 3 days or so. And then you got to wait a couple weeks till women's college basketball starts. So fortunately, there's some other, you could read a book too, I guess, if you wanted to do that. So back here in segment 2, Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball. And I thought Becky Hammon did a really good job of talking about what were the problems. What were the specific issues? So I want you to hear from Becky. I want to just kind of take you through a couple of the numbers on it. I also included, I asked Kelsey Plum about it. Kelsey and Spike Lee were going at each other. Look, just point of personal privilege. It is such a blast to cover a player like Kelsey Plum, somebody who is at the highest level of competitiveness. But you just mix that in with, I grew up a New York Knicks fan. They're in the NBA. It's a basketball league for men. And so I grew up watching Reggie Miller and Spike Lee go at it. And it's almost like they're doing like a remake of my childhood, but this time it's with the WNBA lens. So I love it. I love to see it. So hear what Kelsey had to say, but also and more importantly, the overall atmosphere at Barclays on Sunday. Oh my God. Oh my God. As somebody who covered games in Westchester, it's not Westchester, friends. It is not anywhere like it. It is top shelf Major League. Get out there Tuesday night if you can. Get out there because this is more than a moment. Here's Becky on what Vegas needs to change and Kelsey on Spike Lee. Back with you in a minute. Howard Megdal here. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Becky, Kelsey, one for each of you. Becky, for you, just what do you think was the biggest single number, if you look at it, point the difference in this one? And Kelsey, for you specifically, seemed like there was some drawing with Spike Lee. I'm just wondering if that was something you took pleasure in, enjoyed, just your thoughts on that.
I don't know what was said. I didn't hear it.
I can't say exactly what was said, but I told him that he should talk louder.
Of course you did.
But it was all well and fun, and it's really cool that he's here. Even last round was really cool that he's here. I know he's a big sports fan, so it says a lot, that he's in the building and that he respects the game. And so yeah, I was just having fun.
And Becky, for you, just what do you see as sort of the single biggest reason for the disparity today, biggest thing to clean up?
Well, I thought their length bothered us. Ball stuck a little too much for me. And then, the whole team was pretty much committed to taking away Asia. She had 2-3 people on her all night. And so we got to do a better job of getting her in space but also giving her outlets. And then it's just about playing the right way. If they're going to put 2-3 people on her every time, the ball's got to pop on out of there. But I thought their pressure, they picked us up full court the whole game. That gets to be exhausting. There's a wear down factor there. And I thought they did that. Thought their defense was great tonight. And then you got to make shots against this team. They're too good defensively and offensively. So the open ones you got to make. It's just, it puts too much pressure on you. But at the end of the day, we lost a lot of hustle points, which that can't be the case. You can't only get 2 offensive rebounds and get beat in transition all the time. Points in the paint, on the board, on the free throw line, like they just kicked our ass in every area of the game, I thought.
So there's just a couple of things we've got to address about what Becky said, because she's right. If you're giving up the boards and you're not getting back in transition defense, then you're basically creating a gap for you that's impossible to make up, no matter how fast you start. And starting slow, giving up 28 in the first to the Liberty. I mean, it's a common occurrence. New York has started fast. They like to jump on people and punch them in the face. They did it against Atlanta in the first round of the playoffs. Here's the problem. New York was not taking advantage of slow defense from the Aces. This is what New York does really well. New York is incredibly effective in transition. Their pace has been beyond the pale all year. And yeah, 16 points in transition given up by the Aces, only 6 by New York. You may not get there by slowing down New York. You may just have to increase the amount of transition points you get as the Aces, because that comes down to, you go percentage, 1.07 points per possession. That's not far off from what the Aces were defensively in transition all year against all teams. So it's a complicated thing to figure out. And I strongly suggest that this is not an Aces effort thing. I just think, and the Aces, maybe they'll bring more to it. And you certainly heard that from Becky. You heard that from Kelsey. But the Liberty, by playing their game, well, they are this good. And so that's a problem for the Aces to figure out. The other problem for the Aces to figure out, Chelsea Gray in game 1. I'm not trying to pick on Chelsea, but 4 points, 2 of 7 shooting. The numbers are the numbers. 1 assist. It blows your mind. And when I say that, I mean, she has had one game without double figures in points since 2021 in the playoffs. Okay. And it was 9 points, and it was in a clinching game against the Chicago Sky in 2023. And they didn't need her to score a ton. And she had 9 assists. I mean, the assists are the given. They are the given. It's not the Chelsea Gray of the past couple of years. And it's just sort of an interesting side note. And I know everyone spends all this time like, oh, it was the 4th place voter for A'ja Wilson last year in the MVP vote. And then just as a brief aside, it was not me. I had Stewie first, A'ja second, AT third. I had Chelsea 4th on that ballot, by the way. And the idea that somebody thought that Chelsea Gray was more valuable potentially than A'ja last year and in general the last couple of years, given the value of both of them to the Aces, that's a lot of abuse for somebody who probably ended up supporting an A'ja Wilson teammate. But I digress. Listen, who knows? Maybe that person voted for somebody else, and maybe there isn't logic to it. I don't think anybody gains much by trying to shame the people who vote for WNBA awards. It's hard enough to cover this league. But bottom line is that Chelsea Gray is, wherever you want to rank her, last year, this year, incredibly valuable and incredibly important to the Las Vegas Aces. And if you're sending doubles, triples at A'ja has 5 assists and did a really good job because she's A'ja Wilson. She was the MVP this year. That was a very easy vote, with apologies to some of the amazing players who were also on my first team. A'ja Wilson had a historic season. We've talked about her numbers on here too. I have. Gigi Spears talked about it. Chelsea Gray doesn't play like Chelsea Gray. This is a really hard series for them to win, even if New York doesn't play as fully efficiently as they did in the first game of this series. So I'm really curious to see. I know Chelsea has been gutting through not being at 100%, not being fully herself. When she is fully healthy, she's the best point guard in this league. And I hope that we get to see that from a basketball perspective alone because fully healthy Chelsea Gray, leave aside how important she is to Las Vegas, what joy it is to watch her play like that. But it's critical. So we'll be back talking X factors. I got one for each going into tonight's game 2. I'm Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Segment 3, Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball. We are talking X factors for tonight's Las Vegas Aces New York Liberty matchup. We're going to start with the Liberty side. Betnijah Laney was incredibly important to this team, as she always is. You don't win a title without a player like Betnijah Laney. You just don't. Here's the thing. She played 21 minutes. She was not effective as a shooter, especially in the first half. 1 for 6, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, 2 steals, and incredibly stellar defense. A big part of why Chelsea Gray was limited. Put her on Tip Hayes, who we'll get to in a minute, and really shut her down when Tip came into the game. Betnijah Laney, and they're being smart about managing her minutes, and they should be smart about it. There's a long way to go. That was game 1 of potentially a 5-game series, followed by potentially another 5-game series. They're going to play these 5 games in 9 days. You need to keep her fresh. Liberty had a double-digit lead. They went with a lot of Kayla Thornton in the 4th, Kennedy Burke, some different lineups, a more Sloot forward lineup, let us say, than you have typically seen their closing lineups be down the stretch. And if they have the luxury of doing that again in game 2, they should. But the question is more, if necessary, can Betnijah Laney give you not just 35 minutes, but 35 minutes and then turn around and give you the same level of play following it? And that'll be interesting to see, because she is as important as virtually anyone on this Liberty roster for what she does at both ends. There were some points down the stretch where ultimately the ball swings around. Liberty did a great job, and you get it to Kennedy Burke, who is a really solid player and important and has been on our podcast. We've talked about it. You've heard the numbers, but is not the knockdown 3-point shooter that Betnijah Laney is not as efficient driving to the rim as Betnijah Laney is. There's no shame in that. But Betnijah Laney Hamilton, I've got to get in the habit of that. She's been Betnijah Laney since her Rutgers days, since her Philly high school days for me. But Betnijah Laney Hamilton, X factor for this Liberty team. And for the Aces, look, this is a starter-heavy team, right? But among the starters, Tia Stokes played 13 minutes. She is not an offensive threat in a real significant way. Early on, the Aces were giving John Paul Jones open threes. Well, she shoots 39% from 3. The Liberty were giving Tia Stokes open threes. Well, she shoots 22% from 3. Those are very different choices in terms of the likely outcomes. They get 25 great minutes out of Alicia Clark, 9 points, but Alicia Clark, for all of her defensive acumen, could not really slow down Breanna Stewart. And then you had 23 minutes from Tip Hayes, but she scored 2 points, and they were both at the free throw line. She was 0 for 2 from the field. And ultimately, if Chelsea Gray is not providing a ton of scoring, even when Kelsey Plum's playing as well as she is, and A'ja Wilson is A'ja Wilson, and Jackie Young is Jackie Young, I just honestly think the Aces need Tip Hayes to have vintage Tip Hayes games. And maybe that's not a 30-point performance like we've seen from her in some playoff games. And we did a Tip Hayes piece about appreciating her when she retired. Of course, she is now unretired and playing with the Las Vegas Aces once again. And we're delighted to see it. As somebody who enjoys watching Tiffany Hayes play basketball, that makes me very happy to see. But they're going to need that from her. And it starts with game 2 tonight, 7:30 Eastern time. I will be there. We will have post-game reaction for you, talking all about it and get you ready for the rest of the series there. So that's all for today, at least pregame. From me, I'm Howard Megdal. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Again, I know it. You think, oh my God, there's no basketball coming because the WNBA is ticking down to a precious few games. Women's college basketball doesn't start until early November, but I'm just here to tell you it's called the National Basketball. I'm sorry. The National Basketball Association, and apparently there are quite a few teams that men are getting the opportunity to play basketball in, and give Locked On credit, right? Locked On NBA, it already exists, and your local experts in Locked On NBA keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. So find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Tuesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.